Hi again, folks. This is your serial cynic. Yeah, that's me back there. Here camping out in my daughter's room. Um, I want to go back to that story that I started the other day about myself. This is part two of that, so this is just a follow up to that installment. And when I last spoke about it, I was talking about the fact that I was now entering a new stage of my life. And this new stage was marriage. So please, you're not going to understand this unless you go back and look at the first part. All right? I haven't given it a title as yet. I haven't even uploaded it as yet, but I'm going to upload it along with this one so you can have both sides and that you can follow the first part, and then this part is going to make some sense to you. But anyway, like I said before, in that last where I ended, the church that I went to, they were very strict on relationships and the way that they went down. Because in their estimation, biblically speaking, we young people were not supposed to be out there fornicating. Or I shouldn't say young people, any people. If you're not married to the person, you're not supposed to have sex. This, according to them, was in the Bible, and it was there. And they used to always teach us, according to the book of Corinthians, I think it's 1st or 2nd Corinthians, I don't remember, that it's better to marry than to burn, or burn with passion. So needless to say, here we are as 18-year-olds, 17-year-olds, 21-year-olds. You're dating someone. And in their mind, the natural progression was, hey, you're dating this person. It's been a couple of months, Don't tell me you're not trying to get something there. So before you go and sin and fornicate, you need to go ahead and get married. I did not follow in the path of a lot of my peers in the church where I got married at 20, 19, or anything like that. It actually took me a few years. I think I was 25 by the time that came around. But it was very easy to fall into this when this is being drilled into your head, that you're dating someone or you're seeing someone, another person, a female in the church, or if you're a female dating a male in the church. The elders would come to you and start putting that little pressure. So when do you guys get married? And worse, if you had a sibling or best friend in the church, or siblings, or very, very good friend in the church who went on to get married, then the pressure was applied. What about you? When are you getting married? When are you guys getting married? And of course, it was always there, lingering in the back, that you're dating this person for a few months, maybe a few years, that you couldn't tell them that you were not doing something else beyond just dating. So for a lot of us, to get away from the suspicious eyes, all the guessing, all the speculating, the logical step was just to go ahead and get married. So yes, I had friends of mine who were getting married at 18, 19, 20. And at the time, I didn't quite understand like I do now. But most of them were making a great mistake. Now, some perhaps lucked out and didn't marry someone that they probably really did care for. And of course, you could care for the person at that time, and later on you find out you don't really care for them like that. But some of them may have lucked out, may have just by chance married that person that they still love to this very day. They still adore to this very day, years later. Anyway, in my case, this is basically what happened. You get married. I shouldn't say you get married. You start dating someone, and in your mind, there are only few requirements, and the highest requirement is that you believe in God. You believe in the Bible. We have the same beliefs. We go to the same church. Hell, what could go wrong? You see someone, you like them, they're cute, they're beautiful, they're whatever. They probably have some very nice ways about them. And again, the highest thing is, hey, you believe in God? Yeah, I believe in God. Hey, you believe this? Hey, yes, I believe the same thing. Hey, we go to the same church. Hey, we like one another. Why not get married? This was pretty much the path that I went down. And I'm not going to get into all the details with that, but I did end up having some children, which is the greatest thing that happened in this marriage. But the marriage itself turned out to be a royal disaster almost from Jump Street. But here's the other problem in the church that I went to. They did not believe in divorce. Again, they go to the Bible. The book of Malachi, I, the Lord, I hate divorce. And they point to Jesus' teachings on the same matter, basically stating that you just have to just stay married, more or less. And if you divorce, you should not remarry. Now, of course, I know, again, I'm talking about my church, our belief system, certainly not the only church that was believing this back then. And I do realize that the church I used to go to have come to a bunch of changes since my time, have come to accept certain things because, as usual, the younger people push the envelope. The modern world encroaches in on their antiquated beliefs and ideas, and they buckle after a while and start giving in. So things I couldn't get away with, or things we believe decades ago, has since changed. But anyway, this was the situation with our church. You just couldn't get divorced. I shouldn't say you couldn't get. Of course, you could go ahead and get a divorce, but what I mean is that they instill this fear in your mind that that was wrong. That was just a one-way ticket to hell if you went ahead and divorced your wife or your husband. Pretty much under any circumstances. And this was the scenario that a lot of us found ourselves in. And again, later on, I did look back and see how all this thing turned out. But at the time, I wasn't paying much close attention to some of the people who were older than us who did get married at 20, 21. And remember, you're in a church, so the pickings are rather slim. And that was another thing. They believed that we were the church, we were part of God, and we were not supposed to go ahead and have relationships with people outside the church or people outside the faith. Now, of course, the thought was you weren't supposed to really, what was the word? Be unequally yoked with people outside the church, outside the belief system, mind you. But they went a step further, and the implication was you don't want to date people outside the church itself. So if our church is First Baptist, whatever, you didn't want to go marry somebody from Second Baptist, whatever. No, it was not against the law. But they put it in your mind that, well, Second Baptists don't believe like what we believe. We believe in going to church on Sunday. They believe in going to church on Saturday. Hey, they believe in wearing pants. We don't believe in wearing pants over here, for the females. Hey, they believe in wearing jewelry. We don't believe in wearing jewelry. So all these little petty nonsense is what made the divisions. So now, if we're in our church and you have 100 people, and out of that 100, 50 of them are little children under the age to actually get married. Now you're down to another 50 people, and most, some of them are already married, some of them are much older, or whatever. So now you have very slim pickings of people you can look at as a potential mate. So needless to say, people would look around and it's like, I'm horny, I want to have sex, but there's only sister so-and-so and sister so-and-so. Sister so-and-so is like 200 years older than me, and the other sister over here, I don't like how she looks, but hey, I need to get some sex on. And so you felt this pressure to go get married. My situation was not really as bad as that and as drastic as that, but you didn't look into other things. You figured that by getting married to this person, that any situation that arises, because you believe in God and you believe prayer changes all things and prayer fixes things, all you have to do is come to church, follow the word of God, pray, and all will be well. Well, I'm here to attest to you that's not true. And so I went through a real horrible, horrible, horrible marriage. Endured it really bad. Ended up having children. And of course, I know most people would look on and like, well, hey, if that was me, first sign of whatever, I'm out of here. Yes, that's the way I would do it today. Because now I'm no longer held down with these crazy beliefs. But back then it was like, no, you can't do that. Pray some more. Come to church some more. Look within yourself and see where you're wrong. Because God can't be wrong. So it must be something you're doing or not doing that's causing you not to break through. And so you keep pushing. Maybe I need to pray some more. Maybe I need to read the Bible some more. Maybe I need to bring my children to church some more. This thing about counseling and all that type of stuff was not really much discussed. And counseling was just basically, let me pull out my Bible here. The Bible says you need to stay with your husband. You need to stay with your wife. So I went through this whole marriage, sticking with it for years because of that. Again, some of you won't understand this because you were not brought up in that type of church or that type of environment. Your church may have been much more lax with stuff like that. So don't try to understand unless you were in this situation. But for the folks who understand or who've been in those kind of situations, or my friends who were a part of that church or that part of that organization or churches like that, you'll definitely know what I'm talking about. But anyway, towards the latter part, I want to say the latter third of my years in marriage there, this is when some changes started to take place. Now, the church I used to go to was very legalistic, meaning very strict. You can't wear this, you can't wear that, you can't go here, you can't go there. And of course, they use the Bible to justify these things. Now, again, you could do them if you wanted to do them. They weren't that crazy to tell you, well, we're going to put a gun to your head if you try to go ahead and do what we tell you not to do. No. You're not doing anything illegal by law if you decided as a female you wanted to wear pants or you want to wear jewelry or makeup. But in the church, they used to put this fear in you. Do you know you're not pleasing God? Do you know Genesis chapter 14 says this and Deuteronomy chapter 27 says that? This was the situation they put you into, drop the guilt trip on you, keep you in line, and so forth, using the Bible. Where have we heard this before? Anyway, I eventually moved on from that church and I went to a much relaxed environment, much more relaxed. Women wearing pants, jewelry, beautiful services. Unlike the churches where I came from, where most of the speakers were, think of it this way. In my church, you didn't have to have the intelligence. You didn't have to have the degrees behind your name. You didn't have to have the eloquence. All you had to do was be a person who knew the cliches well. Oh, the Lord has brought me from a mighty long way. Oh, the Lord lifted me up when I was down. You just had to have the flair and the charisma. You didn't have to have the knowledge, mind you. You didn't have to know what you were talking about. Because this church was filled up with a lot of black folks, and all you had to know is how to stir up those emotions. And you were just the star. And I was the type of person, I'm not saying this arrogantly, but I consider myself to be an intellect, speak to my intellect. So all this jumping around and flipping around and all this noise and moonwalking across the stage and all that never really impressed me. In fact, I used to just shudder. Oh, good, here we go again. Here's this guy, they're doing cartwheels down the aisle with a microphone in his hand. Never impressed me. So eventually I left that environment, went to another church where you had some eloquence. You had some smarts behind what the person was saying. You could tell they knew what they were talking about. They broke down the Bible. They spoke more to your intellect than your emotions. So I felt like I found home. I found a place. At this time, I'm raising young children. going through a horrible marriage, still not pursuing things where my talent could lead me. Because again, I was still of the mindset, Jesus is coming back soon, look busy, be in church, be around church, be doing church things, doing things for the kingdom. Not out there partying, not out there on the beach hanging out. Be ready. This is what drove me back then. But at the height of my Christian experience, where I felt I finally got it, I'm finally home, I'm finally where I need to be, it was the craziest thing. At the height of this is basically where my Christian faith started to fall apart. You would have thought it would have fallen apart back when I was going through all that trauma. No, I dug in more, trying to figure out what in the world is wrong with me. Why am I not seeing the blessings of the Lord? But here I was at home, kicking back like, it feels so good in Jesus. And it was there where it fell apart. And how did it fall apart? It started when some of my dear friends, and one of those friends happened to be the person who brought me to church way back when I was 14 and got me started on this whole thing. But their mom passed away. At the time I was living in Florida. They were living in New York, where I used to live, but I moved to Florida. Their mom passed away. And I felt, real sad about it. So I know I could not make it to the funeral, so I go to a local Christian bookstore to find something, maybe a card, something I could send. Instead, I ran into a book titled Disappointment with God by Philip Yancey, popular Christian writer. The book was supposed to be a book to strengthen your faith in God. And it was a book that was tackling some difficult questions. Where is God when it's hurting? Why isn't God hearing my prayers? Why does it seem like God is not listening to me? And Philip Yancey goes in and he tries to tackle these questions. And the final outcome of the book is to be strengthened and to understand, even if you don't understand, to keep your faith in God. So I pick up this book and I'm like, okay, perhaps my friends are probably feeling somewhat disappointed right now. And if I read this book, maybe I might find some answers to be able to give to them. Because, it's always difficult. Like, what are you going to say to people when a loved one has passed? So I figured I'd get this book. I got the book. And the strangest thing happened. I'm reading through the book, but somewhere in that book, Philip Yancey includes a story of a young man who wrote about the book of Job, wrote a thesis on the book of Job. And Philip Yancey being a popular writer, the young man came to give Mr. Yancey a copy of this thesis so he can look it over and just bless it. And then the young man leaves. Well, while Yancey has this copy of this guy's work, and Yancey's just going on raving about what the guy wrote about Job, the book of Job, the man who suffered, who still kept his faith in God despite the suffering. While Yancey's doing all of this, the young man is going through his own experiences. And he went through a series of events that just led him to losing his faith in God. So he rushes back over to Yancey after some time and say, hey, look, don't publish that. Don't, forget about it. And Mr. Yancey wants to know what's going on. I mean, hey, this thing is great. What you gave to me was great. Why don't you want me to go further with this? And the young man says to him, he says, look, I don't believe it anymore. It's like, huh? What happened between when you gave this to me and now? So Yancey goes on to recount what the young man told him. And the young man was just like, I can't believe it anymore. And if I'm not mistaken, if I remember correctly, the young man says something, and that is what set me off. Something I had never noticed as much as I've read the Bible. Because remember, when you go to church and you're hearing these messages, these pastors are already starting off with a narrative, which is a video that I did earlier, where they're telling you something now based on the assumption that this is already fact. So I always believe it was the story of Job. Wrap it up in a nutshell. Hey, a man who trusts God, who believed in God, Satan came to him and said, hey, listen, you know what? I can go ahead and I bet I can make that guy curse you. Yeah, you're blessing him, and that's why he's all happy and everything and praising you. But I bet you if he goes through some tough times, he's going to curse you. Job doesn't do so. Job loses just about everything. But in the end, he just stayed faithful to God, and God turned around and blessed him. Story of Job. In a nutshell, that's it. But what this young man noticed was something really odd about the story, with something I did not pay attention to. Now, of course, the story is the story is hogwash. It's a bunch of nonsense. But it's a literary story that was given to try to explain to people. It's this age-old question, why do the good suffer? So the book was designed and written to try to make sense of suffering and why you endure it, because in the long run and in the end, you're going to be blessed if you just stay faithful to God. That's what the book was written for. The story wasn't true. And I'll tell you why it wasn't true eventually. But anyway, the young man looks and he looks at the book and he says, wait, before we can even get started in the book, don't you notice something odd? Why is God and his avowed enemy, Satan, sitting there having a conversation? That was number one, red flag. I thought Satan was evil and he cannot be in the presence of God. What is he doing sitting there having this back and forth with God? Not only that, God is the one who drops the bet down. Have you considered my servant Job? Look at this guy. Man, this guy is just like the star God worshiper. Have you considered him? Check him out. Satan is like, yeah, I know. Yeah, it's only because you're blessing him is why he's so great and everything. And God is basically like, yeah, you think so? Satan was like, yeah, just give me a moment with him. Let me hang out with him for a while and we will see if he stays faithful to you. God says, yeah, okay, bet. Just don't kill him. Take him through whatever you want to take him through, but just don't kill him. And we'll see who wins this bet. Doesn't that sound weird to you? That God is up there, supposedly this is his servant Job, and it's like, I just want to win a bet, so let me just go ahead and prove to my enemy that this guy Job is going to stand up on my side. And so Satan goes off and he just starts just taking Job, raking him over the coals. Now, even though the story was not true, that was very, it's just like, what? And right then and there, my mind just started thinking. Now, it was not Yancey's intent, I'm sure, for me to read that and pay attention to that part of the book and that part of the story. But that is what I paid attention to. And that is where I started thinking. If this crap is in the Bible and this is the way I'm supposed to look at it, what else could be wrong in here? Or what else could be weird and just not making any sense? And the reason why I said the story of Job is not real, because the next thing you have to think about is who the hell was around to hear God and Satan having this conversation and writing it down. Well, Satan showed up amongst the children, the sons of God, and he did this and he did that. Who was around? Which human being was there sitting down, listening to this conversation and writing it down? Now, of course, God conveyed this information to one of his servants who sat down and wrote it. Okay, all right, yeah. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I say that to say this. This is where the wheels of my faith began falling off. And it started leading to other questions. It didn't happen immediately right then and there, but it set the ball in motion for me to start to question other things, to think about other things. And it eventually came to a crashing halt. And believe it or not, when it came to that crashing halt was when I could use this expression, I saw the light. The ignorance fell off. It's like just moved from in front of my face and like, wow, there's a world out there. Wow, I started to look at life through these two eyes, using this brain, and not through rose-colored glasses of Christianity. And I start to see life for what it was. And my marriage for what it was. And this is when I start to take the chains off of me and start to come to liberation and living more in a reality. I'll end it right there. Thank you for tuning in to the Serial Cynic. There's going to be a follow-up on this one also, a part 3. Don't know what I'm going to talk about, but I guess I'll probably just give where I am today and what is going on. But hopefully you're understanding where all of this is going. And yes, I know there are people out there, well, you just didn't get the right Christianity. And I know I said I was going to end it, but here's basically what I'm going to say. I remember when I used to go to the South because of church. One of the big things down there was grits. And I had it the first time, was like, oh my, what nastiness is this? And every time I would joke about I don't eat grits, always someone, well, you've never tried my grits. Well, I tried that person's grits. Well, he doesn't make it like mine. She doesn't make it like mine. You need to try my grits. Try their grits. Like, ugh. Oh, and that's another person. Well, they don't make their grits like my grits. No, it's all nasty. And it's the same exact thing that goes on with people with Christianity. Oh, you went to that church? Oh, you need to come to my church. They don't know what serving God is like. You need to come over here to my church. You come to their church, like, nah, this is not for me. Oh my goodness, you just didn't have the right gospel. You just didn't have it right. You didn't have it in the heart. You had it only in the mind. You this, you that. Trust me, I heard it all. I haven't told you that I used to be out there talking the same language. When people used to complain and end up in our church, oh yeah, that church over there didn't know what they were talking about. We have it right over here. So, when you come, save me the trouble of coming in here like, well, you just didn't have the right Christianity. You just didn't have the right form of God. You didn't understand God. You didn't have a relationship with Jesus. You had a religion. You didn't have the right relationship. You didn't have the right formula. Save yourself the trouble. Okay? I'm no longer a part of it. I'm free and happily free. I don't miss anything. Made some great friends. I don't miss anything about it. I'm still traumatized by that stuff and those years of living that life. Am I out here partying, getting drunk, running around with a bunch of women like they used to think that we were going to do if you left the church? Am I serving Satan, offering babies in my backyard, drinking the blood of children and worshiping Satan in my bathroom or something like that? No. Still the same person I always was. The only difference is this brain up here right now is not looking at life through the rose-colored glasses of Christianity and superstitions and fables and fantasies. All right? So hang around for the third installment of this. Again, thank you for at least taking some time out to listen. Like, subscribe, share. Leave your comments down in the comment section. Questions, thoughts, opinions. I'll see you guys next time.